Hello. It's Remembrance Sunday this Sunday, and that means in the week afterwards it will be Remembrance Day, the 11th of November itself. Usually, this Sunday, we'd be out in our thousands on the market square for our act of remembrance and parading down the high street and gathering round the War Memorial. This year we can't. There'll be a smaller, private act of remembrance at the War Memorial, or not private, but smaller, and we're having to do remembrance differently. I hope that everyone who's not in church or doing something else will be able to stand on their doorsteps at 11 o'clock on Remembrance Day or Remembrance Sunday and spend those important 2 minutes in silence. It's a big old time of remembrance at the moment. We've had All Saints' Day when we remembered the wonderful stories of the saints gone before us, and we've had All Souls when we've remembered those who we love who have died. At Remembrance, we remember those who have died in war. It's an odd thing to say, remember, because we didn't know many of them. I didn't know any of the people on our war memorial, or whose names I'll read at remembrance services. So it's not like All Souls, where we're remembering people we miss. And it's not like All Saints either, because we're not remembering people who were perfect. We don't know anything about the people on our war memorial. We know a bit. We don't know if they were good people or kind people. What we remember, though, is that at one moment, and maybe lots of other moments, but especially at one moment, they were brave people. What we remember is, although we don't know them, they were asked to do something that took enormous courage and bravery, and they did. And it cost. More than money, it cost lives, their lives. And so we remember, not them, but what happened to them. We remember what they went through, because it was a big thing to give and a big thing to do. When someone does something small, we don't have to remember it for long. If somebody brings us a cup of tea, we're glad and we're grateful, but if they keep asking us to remember it for the next month, that would be odd. But if someone does something huge, if someone gives something at vast cost, if someone does something as momentous as what the people went through in the First and Second World Wars, that needs remembering. It needs remembering because the cost was so huge. It needs remembering because it's part of the story of how we got here. Our world is different because of what happened to them. We don't know it's different, and we don't notice the difference because we don't know what would have happened if they hadn't been so brave, if they hadn't gone to fight. The world would be unbelievably different, but we don't appreciate that because we live in this reality. But that doesn't change the fact we live in a reality shaped by them, changed by them. And we owe them. How much do we owe them? How long should we remember? We owe them everything because they gave everything. How long should we remember? I'm not sure that's a question we even should be asking. We just should. And not just because of what they did, but because of what it means for us. Because when the world gets to a position where people have to fight and die to protect what they love, things have gone desperately, tragically wrong. When we admire and remember their courage, we remember also that it shouldn't take lives for life to be safe. That's why it's so monstrous when politicians say things about the other side should be killed or something like that, because they really shouldn't. We want the world to be a place where truth and justice and peace continue and thrive without anyone having to risk their life, without anyone having to put themselves in danger, because we should be able to do this with words and actions with the courage to listen and try to understand someone who thinks or votes or feels totally differently to you, with the desire to understand and the ability to argue and persuade for what you feel matters. When it gets to the point where lives are on the line, we have already lost. And the cost of those lives reminds us of this, reminds us how awful it is when we get to that terrible stage. And so, as we look back and remember, we always look forward and say, how do we make it better? How do we make it so that the world is good, the same good that they had to fight and die for, but without that cost? How do we have the conversations now that will stop the conflicts tomorrow? This symbol of Remembrance Day is a wonderful and well-chosen one. A flower that grows in the earth that is churned up and disturbed, as the earth was churned up and disturbed by the guns and the artillery shells in no man's land in the First World War. From it, these things grew, because poppies burst into life when their soil is disturbed. A reminder that good and beautiful things can follow after the awfulness and the violence. Can follow, not will follow, but can follow. That's important, because the difference is up to us. The making sure that after the mud and the wretchedness comes something beautiful and wonderful. That in the face of violence, we bring something that is different, that makes the world brighter and more beautiful, not darker and more fearful. That's our job, our challenge. And as we remember those who died in the conflicts of the First and the Second World War, and countless conflicts afterwards, and actually countless conflicts before, we remember that it matters. We remember that our choice is important because the alternative does not bear thinking about. Does not bear thinking about. What a silly phrase. It needs thinking about. The alternative to truth and peace and justice needs thinking about, because if we don't think about it, we won't remember how awful it was. And if we don't remember how awful it was, we won't remember how important it is that we build better, that we respond to anger with peace and confidence and the courage of our convictions, with generosity, with wise words, with the ability to listen, and with love. Remembrance Sunday is different this year. Remembrance Day is different this year. But I hope that our decision to remember will not be different, that we will remember as clearly and decide as decisively as ever we have, in 2 minutes of silence, in 2 minutes of thought, for the people who paid so great a price for the peace that we enjoy.